So as Season 9 is running through its second half of the season, I figured I might as well get started on my huge backlog of all the other seasons on this show I need to rank. And I decided I want to start with the first season and gradually move up until Season 8. So yeah, this might take a while, but I guess I gotta start somewhere, so let's go ahead and get the first season done. Season 1 was an odd time. The show was just starting out and didn't really have an identity like it has today. So this season of the show was what I consider to be the growing pains of Death Battle, as they didn't really find their footing until later in Season 2, before slipping on a banana peel and falling face first smack dab into concrete with Season 3, but I'm getting off topic. But just because the first season was an awkward time doesn't mean that I don't think it holds up pretty well. Sure, most episodes have aged horribly, but given the standards back then, I'm honestly kind of impressed with some episodes here. I wouldn't necessarily call them better than any newer episodes, but holding them up with the standards of the early 2010s in mind, I think some episodes here are able to stand their ground against episodes from later seasons. But what episodes do I think do that? Well, I mean, this is a ranking. You're gonna find out anyway, that's kinda how it works. We have 25 episodes to go over, so let's just get to it since I'm not sure I can drag this intro out any longer. God, I don't even want to fucking talk about Justin Bieber versus Rebecca Black. If you want someone going in depth, just go watch Biffweed's video. He basically just sums up my thoughts here. God.
Get over yourself!
Rogue versus Wonder Woman is just awful. The entire analysis is just 90% Horty boomstick jokes that get old really quickly, and the fight is just weak. The animation is very jaggy, and it definitely has that early Season 1 vibe cranked to the max. I just don't have a lot else to say here. It's just not that good. Well, at least I got rid of the health bars. Yeah! Oh boy. So, Starscream vs. Rainbow Dash is a fine episode overall, but there are a few problems that just really rub me the wrong way. The animation itself is fine, has that Rogue vs. Wonder Woman problem, but slightly less noticeable. I like the part where Starscream distracts Rainbow Dash as he tries to target her, and the death is kinda funny, I guess. But Starscream just feels like a joke here. He doesn't feel like a threat, he just feels like a throwaway villain in a cartoon. And Rainbow Dash can get really annoying in the fight. But my biggest problem with the episode's production, Ben said himself that if they found out that Starscream would win, then the episode would be cancelled, as they didn't want to scare any young girls that happened to come across the video. I mean, sure, I guess that makes sense, but why even make the episode at that point? That kinda defeats the point of Versus if you don't make an episode just because one character won. Why not make a different Transformer matchup, or a different My Little Pony matchup, or an entirely different matchup altogether? I don't know, man, that just pisses me off. And I'm not even a big Transformers fan, but that has to suck for fans of the series. Man, I feel sorry for y'all.
Chun-Li may be a bit tougher and quicker than Mai, and
Chun-Li vs. Mai is just boring. The fight is fine, nothing substantial really goes on, the death is kinda cool, the analyses are just boomstick horny jokes again. The highlight of the whole episode is the drunk driving bit. That's only the really thing I get a kick out of this entire episode.
Avada Kedavra!
Luke Skywalker vs. Harry Potter isn't bad, but I also wouldn't call it good. The analyses are just okay, and the animation is probably the most mediocre one of the entire season. Harry Potter immediately goes for the killing curse at the start of the battle, which in the analysis they say he's never used. Most of the fight is just Harry shoots thing, Luke blocks said thing, and then Luke does thing, Harry resists thing. Sure, it's Season 1, what they could do is very limited, but it still isn't that much of an exciting watch. The build up to the death, though, is immaculate. Luke using Shatterpoint to open the wound on Harry's face is a really stellar and chilling scene. The killing blow itself, kind of anticlimactic, but it's fine, I guess. I already went over this episode of my Mario ranking, but that segment is already super short, so I'll just go over some highlights. Analyses are okay, Yoshi gets bodied, the fight is pretty quick-paced and action-packed, but it's also extremely short. Death is pretty funny, that's really all I got for you.
Yes, Boomstick, we get it. She's like Sonic.
Felicia vs. TAOKAKA is pretty average, action is okay, the analyses are fine, and the death is pretty good and intense. And I also like the bit where they stopped mid-fight to chase the butterfly. Pretty fine all around. I did not have, anything to say on this episode.
A great man has fallen today.
Hagar vs. Zangief is also pretty good. Again, nothing substantial, but all around really solid. The fight is really short, but the action can get pretty intense, especially with the build-up to the death. The two spinning each other in the air was a great way to create suspense for who wins. Also, Hagar's main feat was actually just fan art, and I find that absolutely hilarious.
And I can hear all the fanboys raging, but Raph won in the movie. He should win here. Nya, no.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Battle Royale was the first episode to feature more than 2 combatants. A battle royale, and I gotta say, they handled it pretty well. Except for one detail, but we'll get to that. I love how they explain how the fight went and give reasons to why it went that way. And Ralph mercilessly stabbing Donatello is so brutal, but I love it. And the final clash is intense and climatic, especially the death. Overall, pretty solid animation and episode. Well, except for how they treat Mikey. His entire analysis is just straight up bullying him. Wiz and Boomstick even call him the equivalent of special ed. I know things were different back then, but man, that aged horribly. Luigi vs. Tails is my least favorite episode of all time due to how much they disrespected the green goat. But at least they didn't say, oh geez, he better not win. Mikey is honestly probably the most disrespected character on this show. And that's saying something when Mewtwo vs. Shadow exists. But the episode is fine.
The Ninjakin is, in fact, an invention of Hollywood, as there is no historical evidence of the weapon's existence.
Like the moon landing.
That's right, Boomstick.
Honestly, I really like this idea. Taking the winner from the Battle Royale and having them be the opponent for the next combatant for the next episode is honestly a really clever and cool idea. Zitz vs. Leonardo has the shortest fight and overall episode of the entire show, so I don't really have much to say here. It's more or less what I like about the TMNT Battle Royale. Leo uses strategy, Zitz uses brute force. It's pretty fun and the death is kinda good, but overall, not a lot to say here. This is why I love Season 1, cause I don't think we'll ever get a matchup like this again. Bomberman vs. Dig Dog is a pretty fun time. I like the speed of Rui and I like the environment control both have. I love the back and forth tennis match, the first super bomb explosion, and the death is really creative. Dig Dug winning only because of his maneuverability is kinda bullshit, but it's Season 1, every episode had pretty whack research. The tunnels Dig Dug makes look blurry at points, it just looks like they used the eraser tool in Microsoft Paint. The analyses are pretty fun, and yeah, that's about all I got here.
That's right, Boomstick.
Yet another episode I already went over in my Mario ranking. Not only is this the first gag episode, but it's also the first same series matchup. Like I did with Yoshi vs. Riptor and the other Mario episodes this season, I'll just highlight some stuff about it. The sequence with the cannon is really great, though unnecessarily long. The chanting bit at the end is pretty intense, and the fight ending in a draw is really fucking lame.
That's right, Boomstick.
Here we are, all the way back at the beginning. First of all, I just gotta thank this episode for kickstarting my favorite show, starting a community I love dearly, and changing Versus as a whole. The episode itself is very average, but I can't thank it enough for what it helped do. Thank you, Boba Fett vs. Samus. Anyways, now the episode itself. Analyses are okay, though props for no horny Boomstick jokes. Although Boomstick does sound like Chad with a regular voice, but I can't really complain about that. It is the first episode after all. I love the bit where Fett is flying away with his jetpack and the death is pretty cool. Surprisingly, this episode holds up pretty well. Also, it started the "That's right, Boomstick" meme. Never mind, this episode is number 1 now.
You know, I've always wanted to eat a Pokemon. What? They look delicious!
Pikachu vs. Blanca is a pretty solid episode, all things considered. Like most Season 1 episodes, there's nothing special with the analyses, and making Blanca an electric type was really weird. But like I said, it's Season 1. The animation is pretty well done. Many attacks have great impact, and Blanca feels like he deals heavy hits, and Pikachu feels like he's constantly zooming around the battlefield. All around, pretty solid fight. And also the death is pretty funny. Just having them be in an intense clash only for Blanca just to take a bite out of Pikachu randomly is freaking hilarious.
That's right, Boomstick.
Akuma vs. Shang Tsung is another really solid episode. And not only is it the second episode of the entire show, it's the first Street Fighter vs. Mortal Kombat one, which obviously stuck for later seasons. Chat sounds like his regular voice again, but that'll be fixed later on, and it's the second episode. He's still trying to figure out what voice he wants for Boomstick. The fight is really good. There's a good sense of feel. Things feel fast and impactful. And Shang getting to morph into different things during the fight, including Akuma himself, was amazing. And the final fight at the end was really suspenseful, as we don't know who is who. And the reveal that Akuma himself won was really well done. I don't know. I just don't really have a lot to say on these episodes. I just like them. The original Link vs. Cloud. Well, it's certainly way different than the remake we got all the way in Season 8. The fight itself was the first ever 3D animation they ever did. And while there are some shots that look really cool, there are certainly a ton that look really awkward. I know it comes with the territory, but still. The fight does a good job of using their abilities to counter the others, like Cloud's Ribbon making him immune to the Ice Arrow, Link dodging to get behind Cloud, Link using the Skyward Slash from one of Cloud's moves, and Link stunning Cloud to give him time to grab his sword, despite them saying in the analysis that Cloud can resist stuns. It's all pretty enjoyable, and the part where Link blocks the strikes of the Omni Slash and is just barely able to scrape a clean hit on Cloud before delivering the killing blow is a really great climax. Though Cloud comedically hitting the ground statically with the sound effect of a bass boosted encyclopedia hitting the floor was absolutely fucking hilarious and gets me every time. Overall, I still think the episode is really good, though the rematch is still better. And also the Next Time trailer is unironically hilarious. Just watch.
I did science, I'm better than you. Next time on Death.
I know that's for copyright reasons, but oh my god, that always gets me with how freaking quick it is. Master Chief vs. Doomguy is an episode that is constantly getting requests to be remade. While I do prefer Master Chief vs. Samus and Doomslayer vs. someone else, I wouldn't mind this being a rematch. That's not to say the episode itself isn't good though. I love Doomguy immediately going in, guns blazing as Chief tries to dodge and use strategy. And I also adore the shot where Chief dodges the rockets as they're flying before catching one in midair and chucking it back at Doomguy. That's some raw as hell stuff. I like Master Chief flipping the Warthog and Doomguy using his ability to see invisible opponents like they brought up in the analysis. The death is also pretty good and funny, despite Chief not being able to throw a bomb through a shield. I personally think this is a really good episode on its own, but it could definitely be improved with a rematch. Still, very solid episode.
Oh man, here comes the rage from the God of War fanboys.
Kratos vs. Spawn is an episode that could have been way better if it was in Season 2 or later. A match like this needed a bigger budget and a longer runtime. But how was the episode anyways? Well, it's still really good. The animation can get pretty intense. I love Spawn's abilities and Kratos' weapons clashing and countering each other. That was really fun to watch. I love the contrast shown between the power of Kratos' chains versus his sword, with Kratos' chains not affecting Spawn, but his blade slicing right through him. And the fake out would have gotten me the first time around, honestly, if I could remember my first time viewing it.
Whoa.
The original Mario vs. Sonic is, you guessed it, yet again something I covered in my Mario Death Battle ranking. So, like I did with both Yoshi vs. Riptor and Goomba vs. Koopa, I'm just gonna go over some highlights. I love their abilities countering each other, I love the delayed bomb explosion, the chase at the end is intense, I love Supersonic's representation, the voice acting is okay, the death traumatized me, okay, cool. Thor vs. Raiden is underrated. The episode is so good at feeling impactful. Every hit has so much to it, and the rest of the animation is really well done. I love the flying battle, Raiden getting hit into a mountain, Thor launching that tree, Thor creating a massive tornado, the final strike, and the death. Oh my god, the death. The initial impact and Thor yeeting Raiden into the sun as he's burnt to a crisp with a stellar climax, and definitely one of the best finishers in the show in my opinion. Yeah, I just really like this episode, don't have much else to it.
Wow, what a ripoff.
Vegeta vs. Shadow is my personal favorite of the Shadow trilogy, honestly. I just enjoy coming back to this one the most. Shadow vs. Ryoko just isn't really my thing, and Mewtwo vs. Shadow is, well, Mewtwo vs. Shadow. Vegeta vs. Shadow isn't really intense or climatic, it's just plain fun. I love how Shadow knows that he doesn't have time to fuck around and goes super right then and there. And I also love how Shadow teleports Vegeta random places, like the ocean and the moon, which Vegeta retaliates by literally punching the moon down as Shadow uses all of his energy to teleport it back up. There's just a ton of good moments here. I love how their abilities clash, and the death is really good too. Shadow prepares a Chaos Blast but runs out of super energy right before he does, and instead of a big climatic finisher or moment, Shadow just realizes he's screwed and Vegeta says sayonara before anticlimactically burning him with his laser. I just think this kill is funny, man. So, yeah, a little bit of spoilers for upcoming rankings, but this is where I believe Shadow peaked on Death Battle.
Get a load of this!
Eggman vs. Wily is a really fun time. From what I hear, this was Ben's most stressful animation project. He even had to animate it in a closet. But I think that it turned out amazing. The analysis is really fun as they go over their armies, and the animation is also really fun to watch. I love how it starts with their regular minions going at it, with Wily's overpowering Eggman's, but then Eggman brings out his better tech, and then Wily evens the playing field again with his robot masters. I love Magnet Man pulling two robots in only to blow them up, and Pharaoh Man vs. Mecha Sonic was also really good. And Metal Sonic's introduction was really good, as he comes in with intense music and scans one of the robot masters before blowing them up. And, of course, Scratch and Grounder vs. Sheepman always gets a kick out of me. I love how it feels straight out of a Sonic cartoon. Bass coming in and immediately saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a badass," was somehow more edgy than anything Shadow said in Vegeta vs. Shadow. Metal Sonic absorbs the Chaos Emerald and Bass pulls a Tai Lung as the Yellow Devil enters. Metal Sonic turns into a super form but gets trapped as Eggman and Wily duke it out in their own mechs, which was really fun to see. And I like how Metal escapes and immediately takes out everything within a 30-foot radius. And I also love how Wily begs for forgiveness, but Eggman just stomps on him. Even though it was a fake, I still find it funny. Wily brings out another mech as he throws out the Robo Winza on Metal Sonic as the Egg Fleet comes in. But the Robo Winza affects Metal to where he disobeys Eggman and absorbs the fleet to become Metal Overlord, who immediately decimates everything in its path. Meaning, yet again, this was a tie, which was extremely disappointing as the post-analysis is literally just, okay, well, I guess Metal Sonic wins. I love everything about this episode except for that ending. That was just kind of a sucky way to close the animation. Oh, and also Eggman's voice acting is fine. But overall, really solid episode. Now Death Battle. About Bowser vs. Eggman.
You called for a hero, princess?
Look, you should know the drill by now. Peach vs. Zelda is an extremely solid episode for Season 1 standards. The catch and choke aged horribly. I love the slap fight. The killing blow is really well done, and both powers are utilized well. Check out my Mario ranking if you want me to go more in depth.
Speaking of which, somehow Spider-Man once tried to join the Justice League, but was rejected by Batman.
Ouch! I bet he wishes he could fight old bats in a battle to the death. Oh, wait!
Well, I'm not 100% sure. Batman vs. Spider-Man is the episode I have the earliest memories of watching. So when someone asks me what my first episode was of the show, I always say this one. So yeah, there may be a teensy bit of bias here, but I genuinely believe that this episode is one of the best of this season. The analyses are really good, except for that one boomstick joke, and the animation is also really solid. Unfortunately, Spider-Man gets bodied the entire fight, but it's no big deal. I like the combos that both perform, and it's neat to see Batman's gadgets and Peter's spider-sense both used well. And the kill is really well done. Peter webs up Bruce into a trap and then flings himself into his body with some really stellar sound design. This is definitely one of the better deaths of this season. Again, might just be bias, but I really love this episode. Kind of a shame Spider-Man hasn't come back yet when Batman has had 3 other episodes. So, I hope Peter can come back sooner or later. But please God, not against Ladybug.
Gee, thanks.
Goku versus Superman. Tell me, are you really surprised? The gap of quality between this episode and the rest of the season is so huge that it's not even a competition. I can't just give this episode a brief rundown with my general thoughts. This is Death Battle's magnum opus, the video that changed the entirety of the Versus community, the debate that started this entire show in the first place. I can't give this episode justice with a simple and brief overview. This is something that needs to be reviewed in depth in its own video. So, wait for that to see my full thoughts on this episode, cause it deserves it. Okay, that's 1 down, 7 left to go. This is gonna be a long ride, and each season will need to have a lot more said about them than the last. Season 2 is where the show started to go from good to a downright masterpiece, as there are so many episodes there that are ridiculously good, but there are also a lot that are ridiculously bad. Which ones are they? Well, I mean, you're gonna find out eventually, just be patient. Season 1 did have a lot of major flaws, like its bad research and overuse of fan art, but overall, despite this being the growing pain stage, I still enjoy coming back to this season. While it does have some really abysmal episodes, it also has some really good ones, and I'm happy with it. The show wouldn't be where it's at today without it, so we all owe a little something to this season. But anyways, my fingers are hurting from writing this script, so thanks for watching. Subscribe or whatever, I really don't care. See ya.
I did science, I'm better than you. Next time on Death.